Tonight, nearly a dozen victims and families are waiting for justice in Dallas. They're accusing Dr. Reynaldo Ortiz of tampering with their IV bags at Baylor Surgicare Center. 11 of his patients suffered cardiac episodes, and a co-worker named Melanie Casper died after taking an IV bag home to rehydrate herself. And tonight we're hearing their stories for the first time. Sydney Persing is live outside the Dallas Federal Courthouse. Sydney, it's the first time we've ever heard from one of Ortiz's alleged victims. What did they say?
Well, Izzy, that testimony, it was incredibly emotional. You could tell that folks in the courtroom were incredibly captivated by it. We are not identifying that alleged victim because she is not identified in court documents, but I can tell you she is a 57-year-old mom, a mother of 3. She was incredibly emotional as she addressed the jury. She told them that she had gone to that facility for a back liposuction procedure and also a lower facelift. She said the last thing that she remembered was switching beds before those procedures, and the next thing she remembered was waking up in an ICU in a hospital. She said her eyes were shut, she could not open them, and she believed she was choking to death because she'd been intubated and didn't understand what was happening. She recalled through tears trying to pull that intubation tube out of her mouth, and she told jurors in that she overheard medical staff saying they would have to tie her hands down to keep her from doing that. Another really interesting detail we heard from that testimony is that because of that medical emergency, they weren't able to finish her facelift. So she said they just stitched her up real quick, and she was left for about 2 years until she was ready to go back into surgery. She was left with what she called what looked like a third ear. She also told jurors that she suffered heart issues afterwards that she did not have before that procedure, and she said she will be on beta blockers for the rest of her life.
What a testimony. Sydney, you told us yesterday that prosecutors intended to rely heavily on surveillance video of Ortiz to make their case. How did they do that today?
Izzy, we saw so much video, I would say about 100 pieces of video. I want to pull up some surveillance video for our viewers now. This is video that prosecutors had distributed to us a long time ago, but it shows Dr. Ortiz at the IV bag warmer. That is where these allegedly poisoned bags were. That's what prosecutors say. So again, we saw a ton more video like this, not exactly this. We saw some of this, but we saw a ton more, very similar video. And prosecutors showed video from that victim that I just told you about from the day of her surgery, and they walked jurors through it with a timeline. And I wrote down some of those timestamps for our viewers because I think it's very important. So I want to read them off for you. So prosecutors showed jurors video from 7:56 in the morning that day, and you see Dr. Ortiz take medicine out of a medicine cabinet, and then you see him pull one of those IV bags out of the warmer. At 11:33 next, we see Ortiz come back. You see him put a bag back into the warmer. 3 minutes later, we see him checking the warmer. He comes back to do that. And then again, about 10 minutes later, we see him come check the warmer again. 20 minutes after that, we see a nurse come and take a bag out of that warmer and bring it into that woman's OR. About 40 minutes later, jurors watched as staff run into that room urgently as she's said to have had this medical episode. We see EMS come shortly thereafter, and then we watched that woman be wheeled out, taken to that hospital, to that ICU. I should note she was in the courtroom. She stayed after her testimony, and she watched that video. She was clearly very emotional. She had someone hugging her. Defense attorneys, though, they really tried to poke holes in that video, and they told jurors that the government left out several important pieces of video. So we saw other doctors, other nurses that same day, and on other days, also checking the warmer and also taking bags out of it.
We expect a lot more powerful testimony in the days to come. This trial expected to last 3 weeks. Sydney Persing live in Dallas. Thank you.